My name is Sarah, and it was a day like any other at my high school when the lockdown announcement echoed through the intercom. We huddled in our classrooms, fear gnawing at our hearts. The minutes stretched into hours, and the silence outside was deafening. It was as if the whole world had stopped. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting a sickly pallor on the faces of my classmates. Each ticking second made my heart race faster. The lockdown was supposed to keep us safe, but it only amplified our vulnerability. As I peered through the grimy classroom window, I saw something that chilled me to the bone. Shadows moved in the hallway, but there were no footsteps, no voices, just a haunting, silent dance of darkness. I whispered to my classmates, and together we watched in terror as the shadows grew closer, undulating like smoke. "What is that?" Jason stammered, his voice quivering. "I don't know," I replied, my words barely audible. "But it's getting closer." A shiver ran down my spine as the shadows coalesced into a grotesque figure. Its face was obscured by darkness, but its eyes, crimson and malevolent, pierced through the gloom. It drifted closer, a ghostly wraith, and then vanished into the classroom wall. Panic erupted as my classmates and I screamed in terror, searching for an escape. Desperation clawed at our hearts, but there was nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. The lockdown had turned our school into a nightmarish labyrinth, and we were trapped. Moments later, a blood-curdling scream echoed through the hallway. It was Tina, one of our classmates, who had left the classroom in a frantic attempt to flee the apparition. Her cry was abruptly cut short, leaving us with a haunting silence. Blood smeared the walls, dark and glistening. It oozed from invisible wounds, staining the linoleum floor with grotesque patterns. The metallic scent hung heavy in the air, an eerie reminder of the horrors unfolding around us. "I can't take this anymore," whispered Maya, tears streaming down her face. "We need to get out of here." But there was no way out. The windows were sealed shut, and the door, once an escape route, was now a gateway to an unknown terror. We watched in helpless horror as the shadows continued their eerie dance, closing in on us from all sides. Hours passed, but it felt like an eternity. The darkness outside the windows deepened, and the lights above flickered ominously. Our cries for help went unanswered. We were alone with our fear, the specter of the blood-stained walls and the whispers of unseen horrors. It was then that I heard a voice, a chilling, disembodied whisper that echoed in my mind. "Join us," it hissed, a cacophony of voices from the past. "Join us, and you will never be alone." The voice was insistent, seductive, promising relief from the endless torment. I felt an irresistible urge to step closer to the wall, to embrace the shadows that had become our tormentors. But a shred of sanity held me back, and I fought against the pull. Suddenly, the intercom crackled to life, and the principal's voice filled the room. "The lockdown has been lifted. It's safe to leave your classrooms." Relief washed over us, but the memory of that nightmarish encounter still lingers in my mind. We emerged from our prison, but the school had been forever scarred by the darkness that had engulfed it. And I can't help but wonder, what would have happened if I had succumbed to the seductive whispers of the shadows, if I had joined them in their eternal torment. The lockdown had ended, but the horror had just begun. I'm Jake, and during that fateful lockdown, I found myself in a classroom with a substitute teacher, Mrs. Davis. The atmosphere was tense, but Mrs. Davis kept her composure, reassuring us that everything would be fine. However, as the minutes ticked by, her demeanor shifted from calm to frantic. The fluorescent lights overhead buzzed incessantly, casting eerie, elongated shadows across the room. Outside, the world seemed to have succumbed to a perpetual twilight, a sinister foreboding that seeped through the cracks in the window blinds. She rushed to the window and peered outside, her breath forming frosty clouds on the glass. Her eyes widened with horror as she gasped, "They're here." Her voice trembled with fear, and her hands shook uncontrollably. We followed her gaze, but there was nothing to see, only the empty schoolyard, cloaked in an unnatural darkness. "The legends," she muttered, her voice barely audible. "The ones who vanished during a lockdown years ago. They're coming for us." The dread that had settled in the room intensified as we listened to her words. She described how those unfortunate students had become trapped in the school's sinister underbelly, their spirits twisted by the years of isolation and despair. Now, they sought to claim new souls to join them in their torment. With a sudden, jarring motion, Mrs. Davis fled the classroom, leaving us alone in our dread. We listened as her footsteps echoed down the empty hallway, fading into oblivion. Her terrified screams pierced the silence, growing fainter and fainter until they were swallowed by the darkness. Our fear held us captive, like flies trapped in a spider's web. The room felt colder, the shadows deeper, and the seconds stretched into torturous hours. We couldn't escape the creeping dread that the legend was real, that the spirits of the vanished students were now hunting us. A spine-chilling breeze swept through the room, carrying with it a distant, mournful wail that sent shivers down our spines. We huddled together, clutching at each other, seeking solace in our shared terror. Outside the classroom window, we glimpsed fleeting figures, shadows that moved without bodies. They whispered unintelligible words, their voices a haunting, otherworldly chorus that echoed through the hallway. Their eyes glowed with an eerie, malevolent light. As the minutes turned into hours, we heard Mrs. Davis's voice, now distorted and filled with anguish, echoing from the depths of the school. She begged for release, for freedom from the relentless torment that had befallen her. Tears streamed down our faces as we realized that she had become one of them, the lost souls of the lockdown. They had claimed her, and now they hungered for more. Morning eventually broke, and the lockdown was lifted, but the memory of that harrowing night still lingers in my mind. We left the classroom, stepping out into the world of the living, but the darkness had forever tainted our souls. We had witnessed the horrors that lurked in the shadows of our school, and we would carry the weight of that knowledge with us for the rest of our lives. The legend of the vanished students had become a chilling reality, and I can't help but wonder if, one day, they will come for us too, seeking to add our voices to their mournful chorus of despair. I'm Daniel, and during our school lockdown, the intercom crackled to life with a sinister message. The voice that emerged from the speakers was distorted, cold, and inhuman, a perverse mockery of the soothing announcements we were accustomed to. It claimed to be the spirit of a student who had met a gruesome fate during a lockdown years ago, and it sought vengeance on the living. The voice was a symphony of eerie whispers that seemed to crawl beneath my skin. As we listened in terror, the voice described our deepest fears and most haunting secrets, revealing them to the world in chilling detail. It mocked our futile attempts to escape, knowing our every move before we made it. The minutes dragged on, and the voice continued its haunting monologue, promising that we would never leave the school alive. The room felt suffocating as the air grew heavy with dread. My classmates and I huddled together, searching for comfort in each other's fearful eyes. The windows were sealed shut, the door a foreboding barrier. We were trapped within the suffocating walls of our own terror. With each passing moment, the voice grew more malevolent, its words dripping with a perverse pleasure. It reveled in our suffering, taunting us with memories we wished we could forget. We were helpless, our tormentor unseen and unknowable. Suddenly, a flicker of movement caught my eye. I turned to the window, and there, outside, I saw them, figures shrouded in darkness, their features obscured by shadow. They pressed their spectral hands against the glass, their eyes burning with a haunting crimson light. Their whispers reached us, a cacophony of voices from the past, a chorus of the damned. "Join us," they hissed, their words weaving into a haunting melody. "Join us, and you will never be alone." The temptation was undeniable, a seductive pull that threatened to consume my sanity. I took a step toward the window, drawn by their siren call, but my classmates grabbed hold of me, snapping me back to reality. "We can't give in," Mia whispered, her voice trembling. "We can't let them take us." As if in response to our defiance, the intercom abruptly fell silent. The oppressive weight in the room lifted, leaving behind only the echoes of our torment. The lockdown had ended, and we were safe, or so we thought. We emerged from our prison, our minds scarred by the haunting announcement that had ensnared us. The school had returned to normal, but the memory of that chilling voice still haunted my dreams. It served as a stark reminder that sometimes the horrors of the past can reach out from beyond the grave, and that the darkness within us can be as terrifying as the darkness that surrounds us. To this day, I can't help but wonder if the voice was merely a manifestation of our collective fears, or if it was something far more malevolent, a sinister force that had found a way to torment us from the shadows. The lockdown had ended, but the horror had left an indelible mark on our souls. A chilling reminder that the past is never truly buried.